Welcome, everybody, to Redacted. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natali Morris.
And welcome on this, what is it, Monday?
It's Monday. We're just getting started again.
Yeah, welcome into the show. So glad to have all of you here. On this show, we are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. So, yes, we are live. If you subscribe to the channel, your name will pop up here on the big screen. I saw a couple of people subscribing. We're nearing 1 million subscribers. So much love to all of you who are seeking the truth, looking for answers to the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. Also, your super chats will pop up here on the big screen. We've got a jam-packed show for you on this Monday afternoon. Coming up on the show, we're going to look at the number of excess deaths that have been happening in the year 2022. Something very odd is going on, and there's people that are not telling us the truth about it. And why is there no investigation as to the number of adverse deaths?
And why is there so little interest in it? We are interested in it because we want to never do this again. So We're going to run down these numbers.
We're also going to look at Ukraine, and we heard overnight from some CNN reports that a massive Ukrainian counteroffensive was about to unfold. Well, we have a major update on that counteroffensive this afternoon. We also have some really interesting information as it relates to the number of trainees that the United States is taking on in Ukraine and what the world is doing right now to try to fill the gap inside of that war zone. It's pretty troubling news. We're going to get to some of those details that you're probably not going to see on CNN, by the way.
Plus, we have more news out of Poland and how that is indicative of the policies that the West is implementing. Plus, some interesting ways to deal with children's behavior issues post-pandemic. You know, kids did not do so well being out of school for a long time. So should we smack them back in order? That is a literal question that we are going to tackle today.
Yeah, just let's start hitting our kids. That's the solution.
And each other.
Redacted starts right now. Is always the answer.
Yes,
exactly.
Okay, apparently, I hope that's sarcastic, yes, because you are watching a channel that is unabashedly anti-war, pro-peace, and so you probably know where we're going to go with this story about school districts deciding to use corporal punishment. You know, I get it, though. We are in the last few days before the school year starts. I am losing my mind. Just having people home, no routine. I get it, right? If ever I'm going to be more prone to this kind of thing, like it's now, but we're going to take this from an empathetic viewpoint.
We want to say thank you to all of you who are subscribers. And if you are joining us for the first time, just please, what you do is hit that like button. I know someone the other day said, don't tell me to smash the like button, Clayton. I do it every day. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that you do it, but not everyone does it. And what happens, because we're up against these algorithms, we're up against censorship, right? We're up against these stories being suppressed by the mainstream media. So we are not CNN. So YouTube doesn't promote our stuff as much as they do CNN or other mainstream media networks. And so what happens is when you smash that like button, it actually pushes it out into the algorithm a little bit more. More people get to see it. The same thing on Rumble as well. When you do some Rumbles over there, it pushes it out further so other people can see the stories that we get to cover here. We are longtime journalists. We are independent. We don't believe either of these political parties in the United States are worth their weight in salt. Worth their weight in gold, I don't know. They're not worth their salt.
They're pounds of flesh.
Yeah.
They're
we're independent. So we don't,
okay.
we think they're both corrupt. But thank you so much for subscribing on this Monday. And please enjoy the conversation. We've got a lot of stories to get to here on the show.
Now
And
David's here.
We're at 980,000 subscribers. We're 20,000 subscribers away from just completely crushing CNN Plus. So
that's right.
Oh, I like it. I appreciate it.
It's funny. We were not to gloat, but I think it's like, I love the idea of independent media, and we need to turn to independent media sources these days because I was listening to something that Kim Iverson was saying earlier. She was talking to Russell Brand, friends of the show. Well, we love Russell. Kim Iverson is a friend of the show. We've not had Russell on the show.
Or been on his show, but we're willing, just so you know.
But one of the things they were talking about is, the media. I mean, we worked in the mainstream media for many, many years.
Yeah.
So did Kim. So when you're in the belly of the beast like that, you understand that the mainstream media now is not a friend of the people. Like, it's not there. If anything, the media is meant to keep you safe. The media is meant to root out the stories that are causing trouble in your communities, in your states, in your countries, right? And
in theory.
In theory.
But they are not acting that way. You think about the way that we all sort of glued ourselves to the television when the lockdowns first started. Like, what the hell is happening in the world, right? And all we were told was what the government wanted us to do and what the government wanted us to know. So any questions outside of that circle was deemed unacceptable. And any questioning of that narrative has continued to be censored on all platforms.
So thank you so much, Anthony.
Well, and Joe Rogan should prove. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say Anthony in our chat. Sorry. Let me just say this. Anthony in our chat just said that this channel gets more views, more interaction than arguably a lot of mainstream media channels do. So thank you so much for that. No, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, yeah, no worries. So I was just going to say, like, independent journalism is far surpassing mainstream media. And Joe Rogan proves, like, he's got, 20 times the viewership of any of the top rated shows. And it just proves to you that people want to have conversations about every topic.
Yeah, the fact that Mark Zuckerberg last week broke a major story on Joe Rogan's show.
Yeah.
About the
censoring
the
of
Hunter Biden laptop story. The fact that news broke on Joe Rogan's podcast, right, is amazing. It's amazing. And of course, if you don't know that story, it happened, I think, on Thursday night, where Mark Zuckerberg told Joe Rogan that, in fact, the FBI came to Facebook and basically told them to suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story. What?
I am shocked that Zuckerberg said that live on a podcast.
Yeah, he kind of said it before, but not in those exact terms. He testified saying that the FBI had, talked to them about Russian disinformation, but this was a specific instance where they called out this Hunter Biden laptop story, which was known to be true, known to be accurate.
Well, the FBI had it in their possession at the time.
Right.
When
so
they went to tell Facebook that they did not want it discussed, right? Which is, like, on the one hand, yes, that they want to keep everything buttoned up, but it's not for them to say what can go public or not.
Right. Anyway, we've got a lot of news to get to on the show. We're going to talk about excess deaths. We're going to talk about what's going on in Ukraine and the cover up there. You won't believe some of the stories coming out of Ukraine this afternoon. We're going to talk about Poland and their energy crisis, the European Union declaring, like a short time ago, a state of emergency. We've got a lot of geopolitics to cover. But first, let's talk about these excess deaths. You might have heard some of these stories, probably not in your mainstream media, about what the government is hiding as it relates to excess deaths. We'll get there in a second, but the American CDC and the British healthcare agencies over the past few days have quietly updated their websites over the weekend, hoping perhaps that you wouldn't even notice these major changes. Here's Alex Berenson. By the way, you'll remember that the White House wanted to have Alex Berenson deplatformed, right, for telling the truth. Here he tweets this: "Hey kids, see if you can figure out what the CDC.gov website changed in its discussion of the mRNA shots. Turns out mRNA is the gift that keeps on giving." And then he tweeted this. Take a look at this. This is the CDC changing into its website.
All right. So the one on the left is what used to be there, right? So what are the main points? Okay. That mRNA cannot give someone COVID, that they do not interact with your DNA. Those things remain for the one on the right. This piece at the bottom, the third piece, the mRNA and the spike protein do not last long in the body. That's what we were told, right, when we expressed concerns about receiving said vaccinations.
So they took off they took off the lower left-hand part of your screen. They've now removed the part that says the spike protein does not last long in the body. That has now been removed from their website.
So it's debatable whether they ever had the right to say that, because the COVID vaccine was the first approved or mRNA vaccine that was ever put into use, right? No other vaccine using this technology was ever put into circulation in the population. For various reasons, right? So did they ever have a leg to stand on to tell us this in the first place,
well,
right?
How would they, right? They didn't have enough years of trials. They didn't have enough. We heard from a number of doctors who said we need at least 2 years, if not more than that, to have any discernible data that we can say, yes, these are safe.
Well, that's talking specifically about whether or not it's safe. I'm talking about the piece of it that's mRNA, right? And so that piece of technology was only ever first used in the COVID vaccines.
Right, but we wouldn't know if it lasts long in the body because we didn't have enough time to figure out how long it's there.
Right, yes.
Go ahead, David.
That's what Robert Malone, though. Robert Malone is the guy who invented the delivery method for that. And he was saying all along that it was a bad idea to do what was going on, and they removed him from Wikipedia, like they silenced him, so
yes.
he was sounding the horn right away.
He was as you pointed out, he was the inventor of the technology in the delivery mechanism for mRNA.
Yes.
They moved quickly to discredit him. Like his Wikipedia page was changed to David's point, and they removed his history. Like it's like, okay, you're Thomas Edison, you create the light bulb, right? And then someone just goes and then takes that off your Wikipedia page. Now you're just Thomas Edison, some guy who likes light.
Well, and he was also labeled an anti-vaxxer when he's like the guy that invented, he was trying to work on a delivery method to make vaccines better. So he's like way pro-vax.
Right. Yes.
And then the British side of this, so that's the American CDC side, the mRNA side. And then here's a tweet from Tracy like this, British. She says, "Ooh, would you look at this? The UK government quietly removes approval for use of COVID vax in pregnant and breastfeeding women 2 years after injecting them with it. Admits safety cannot be assured at this current time." From the UK government. You want to go through this one?
I mean, no, I do not, because I can't talk about it in a different octave than this one.
That's a pretty high octave.
I can't.
I want to talk about it up here.
No, you talk about it, because I'm going to get
It's going to make me mad.
Worked up.
It's going to get me. You want to go up
We
here?
don't talk about COVID.
Oh, now
we can talk.
Now you can. Okay.
So, no, you
now
were safe.
you cannot be assured at this current time, when the data showed that you never could have been sure. I'm sorry, I can't.
All right, just don't hit the table.
No, that was awesome, because when you did that, it shook all of our cameras. So
Sorry.
it like added effect.
Yeah, even David's camera, and he's
Like I'm
3,000 miles
strangling
away
you right now. Like the data always showed that it was not, that there was no way to secure, what's the word they're using? Cannot be assured of safety. The original data showed that they could not assure safety for pregnant women. So now all of a sudden they're saying they knew it. They never could say that this was 100% safe, especially for pregnant mummies.
So here is the toxicity conclusions. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I wonder if if this information would be coming to light if Pfizer was able to hide those documents for 75 years. Like, I wonder if we would be at this point in the conversation without that.
It's hard to say. Those were the documents we started to learn. I mean, among the revelations we got, right, were the lack of trials, the lack of, I mean, we were also seeing.
I think that if I remember correctly, the numbers on the first round of the doses given in December of 2021 were at least between 20 and 30 spontaneous abortions. Spontaneous, yeah, right? Like it caused a woman to miscarry.
In addition to which, we saw myocarditis, we saw all of these adverse effects that were hidden inside of these data points. And yeah, it's a great point. I mean, maybe, and of course, then Pfizer was forced then to start releasing these documents. Instead of 75 years, the judge said, no, you've got to get them out within the next 8 months.
Yes.
And they started releasing documents every Friday, thousands upon thousands of documents every Friday.
Now, going over those documents earned us a strike on YouTube. We got punished for it. That is a form of censorship, right? For you were not supposed to. And all we did was read their own published data, right? And we had to go off the air for two weeks.
Yeah.
And again, what we were looking at was whether or not they knew that there were adverse effects, and there were all kinds. It was a laundry list, right? But specifically, a pregnant woman losing her pregnancy means that you could never assure a pregnant woman that this was 100% safe bet for the baby, for you and the baby.
And W4 in our chat says, remember, Senator Ron Johnson held a conference with close to 100 different doctors and scientists who had all suffered and been silenced. He had them all together for a 6-hour discussion back in 2021. And of course, if I'm not mistaken, that first conference that you're referring to was removed from social media.
Yes.
It was taken off of YouTube. You were not allowed to see it. It was only his secondary conference that that you could see, that you could actually watch.
Yeah, and he invited Fauci. He invited the CEOs of the drug companies. Like, he invited all the people that should have been there to be part of this conversation.
Yeah. Phil Marston says, Pfizer vaccine made me feel like I was dying in our chat. So let's go through the toxicity conclusions. This is from the British side of things here. We'll just kind of skip through this. But this is what they're saying 2 years after injecting women with these.
This is from gov.uk. Okay, yeah. Official source.
This is official source from the government of the UK's website. The absence of reproductive toxicity data is a reflection of the speed of development to first identify and select COVID-19 mRNA vaccine for clinical testing and its rapid development to meet the ongoing urgent health need. In principle, a decision on licensing a vaccine could be taken in these circumstances without data from the reproductive toxicity studies animals. But there are studies ongoing, and these will be provided when available. In the context of supply, it's considered that sufficient reassurance of safe use of the vaccine in pregnant women cannot be provided at the present time.
Oh, no.
However, use in women of childbearing potential could be supported, provided healthcare professionals are advised to rule out known or suspected pregnancy prior to vaccination. Women who are breastfeeding should also not be vaccinated.
What? Okay.
These judgments reflect the absence of data.
I'm not breastfeeding.
That means if you're breastfeeding and you got it or didn't get it because you're like the news anchor from ESPN that got let go because she didn't want to do it because she was having a baby. Now think about that. If you were breastfeeding, you didn't do it, you'd lose your job. You could lose your income. There are actually people in like nurses or teachers that are getting lower salaries in Australia now that aren't getting or didn't want to take the vax.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So now the UK government's saying, hey, we don't feel safe with that. So unless there's some reason that a healthcare provider can tell you that you should get it, you probably shouldn't. You probably shouldn't, because we just don't think that these things are safe. What? Now, here's the real question I have, right? In all of this bullshit is, when did you know this? How were you covering this up? And what were you keeping from the world population in these different governments? Right.
Well, we know that Pfizer knew this as early as January 2022. December. No, I misspoke earlier, because the Pfizer documents that we went over started December 2020, not December 2021.
Right.
And they knew then that there were adverse effects specifically for pregnancies. And so you would think the government would have seen those things, read those things before that. Yes, we know for a fact they did, right? And they still.
And that's why Go ahead. I was just going to say that's why the bigger question for me isn't like when and what did they know? It's why. Why would you do that if you knew that? Yeah. Like how was that coordinated worldwide?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, again, if you follow the money, and again, this is where you have doctors like Dr. Campbell and Peter McCullough and others. They're reluctant to come out and just say flat out, follow the money, but they always kind of leave it hanging there. Like when you look at the biopharmaceutical complex, which is just like the military-industrial complex, and you think about you think about BlackRock and Vanguard and these big companies that own multiple pieces of these biopharmaceutical complex, right? The companies that own everything. And the billions and billions of dollars that they make off of these things. Of course, there's a lot of money at stake. I mean, just read any of your favorite thriller novels, right? If there's money involved in it, there's always a cover-up. That's always the heart of it. And the reason it's because it's true. Time and time again, we've seen this.
Dr. Pierre Corey, he's not afraid to hide it. Like the last conference or get together that Ron Johnson had, Pierre Corey went off on that fact, like talking about following the money, and got into a little bit of detail about it, like certain things they were doing to ensure that there were a lot of COVID diagnosis.
Yeah.
So now let's get to the excess deaths part of this story.
Okay. So Scotland has started to investigate why there are so many excess deaths that are not related to COVID. Now, what they define as excess deaths is they have an algorithm for how many people die at any given time of the year. And they take into effects like, during the holidays, more people die of traffic incidents, for instance. During flu season, more people die. That there's kind of a normal ebb and flow of population death,
There's
right?
more traffic accidents on New Year's Day or because of people drinking and driving.
That kind of thing.
Right.
So if you look at this chart, right, you see that in Scotland, there has been an excess of over 1,800 excess deaths. Now, earlier this year, the government of Scotland, the Parliament, decided to launch an inquiry, right, or an investigation. They said the COVID-19 Recovery Committee is undertaking an inquiry into the cause of excess deaths in Scotland since the start of the pandemic. Data shows that deaths in Scotland are 11% above average for this time of year and have been for the last 26 weeks. And it is unclear why this is happening. So for the last 26 weeks, excess deaths, that means they're not caused by COVID and they're not a normal amount. People are dying. So the committee sought guidance on the following questions. One, has there been a public health emergency that shifted COVID deaths to non-COVID deaths? Right? Is there a new emergency? I think we're going to be able to argue yes. Is there evidence that patients are now presenting in a more acute condition? What accounts for the deaths of non-COVID conditions? Is there enough of a strategic focus on the indirect impacts of the pandemic? I think this is the question, right? Is there enough of a strategic focus on the indirect health impacts of the pandemic? So we shut everything down. We kept people indoors. Does it turn out that caused more deaths?
So for instance, let's just unpack that a little bit. So, okay, because we closed everything down and people didn't go to the hospitals and get screened for a mammogram or get their mammogram,
yes,
right? Did they end up dying of breast cancer?
Well, we can narrow it down by population, and this is what's interesting. So if you look at this graph of excess deaths, I'm sorry if it's a little small on the screen that you're watching, but it starts April 2020, the start of the pandemic, and it goes all the way through April 2022. The bottom line is COVID deaths, right? The top line that's gray is what is expected, and the line above that, that's blue, is excess non-COVID related deaths. So even, what's interesting is if you look at the first bit of data, is that while there were a ton of COVID deaths, there were a ton of unrelated excess deaths at the same time, right? So shutting down had an immediate negative effect on the population. And then it sort of tracks, right, with what is expected for excess deaths.
So from July until like October, it kind of tracks, yeah.
And then it continues to track, but this is for the entire population. Let's look at the next one. This is excess deaths for all persons. So again, this is sort of a different graphical representation. This is exactly what we think. And yellow is COVID, right? But then we're going to sort by population. The next bit shows us excess deaths for people 0 to 24. These are young people. Why are young people dying in excess from, let's say, July 2021 on through this month? Why is this happening?
And we've covered this in our newsletter. We have a daily newsletter. You should all subscribe at redacted.inc. And one of the things we covered in the newsletter is a number of, not just Australia, the UK, and the United States, undertakers and those that run funeral homes talking about an inordinate amount of coffins being ordered for young people.
Right. And so what they're saying, again, is this is not COVID related, although there is nothing in this data that would indicate any adverse reaction to the vaccine, nor do I trust that they even would give it to us, right? And so there was a big hullabaloo about a big athlete, an elite athlete who died last week, just sort of all of a sudden. And they're saying, well, is this related to vaccination? None of this data indicates that at all, but I just don't know if we would see that. So what is the trajectory then of these excess deaths? Will they stop or will they keep going? We're going to throw to Dr. John Campbell for his opinion on this as he goes through this data.
For the past 14 of the past 15 weeks, there's been around 1,000 deaths, extra deaths each week, none of which are due to COVID, more than we would expect. So this has been going on for some months, well, for of the past 15 weeks. The death rate has been higher than we would expect for 14 of those weeks. Around 1,000 extra deaths each week. And if this current trajectory continues, this analysis indicates, the number of non-COVID excess deaths will soon outstrip COVID deaths this year for the year 2020. I find that quite alarming, really. Now, deaths have been attributed by the government to circulatory diseases, diabetes and cancers. But of course, that doesn't tell us what's the precipitating factors for these.
So what he's saying is, why circulatory and diabetes? Why more cancer, right? Is it because of all of these lifestyle factors that came about during lockdowns where all there was to do was eat? I know this from personal experience.
And drink.
All there was to do was drink.
Smoke.
That
and
you
procreate.
we didn't do any of that, thankfully. We couldn't even, like, police turned Clayton around for walking our dog, right? You couldn't go get fresh air. You could not socialize. So are these things, is it that or is it something more? Now, he says soon in the UK, there will be more non-COVID related excess deaths than COVID related excess deaths. But if you look at the chart that I just showed you, can we go back to number 2, England 2? For young people, that's already happening. Already there are more excess deaths that are not COVID related than...
Right. It'd be interesting, if these were older, individuals, you say, okay, these are older people, maybe there's something else going on here. But the fact that these are younger people who are, and we actually saw a big study out this afternoon too about now we're seeing conclusively individuals under 40 years old with adverse effects from myocarditis. So,
that could be one population, or another theory that I had today is, COVID sort of, it attacked the most vulnerable population, but did the lifestyle that we were forced to adopt during COVID create a new vulnerable population, right? And so now we have more people who have pre-existing conditions than before, either because they weren't having regular health care, or the stress of being inside with an abusive spouse, or the stress of losing your job, or the stress of being a teacher for your kids when you're not trained as a teacher, all of those types of things, right? Now, this brought to mind something that I remember early in the pandemic that President Trump had said, because he had sort of heard it trumpeted on Fox News a lot, saying, we cannot let the cure for COVID be worse than the problem itself. And I remember at the time thinking, oh, you just want this to be over because it's election season, right? But this is exactly what they were worried about, is that there would be more negative reactions to the way we were handling it than actually deaths from COVID. And we could get there in short order. Will we put flags on the White House lawn for all the excess deaths caused by the pandemic?
No.
Will we, get any kind of mea culpa from the government who made these decisions unilaterally when there was data to support not doing that? No, right? And so this is indicative that there will be lasting damage from the pandemic. That's not just PTSD from being in lockdown with your family. So once again, I remind you that Dr. Fauci does not think that that's the case. He thinks that there was no irreparable damage.
Well, and what really ticks me...
Well, I don't think it's forever irreparably damaged anyone.
No.
Right. And then I heard from, I think it was a governor of Minnesota, I think out today, also a Democrat, saying that, no, these, lockdowns were fine. They were fine. They didn't hurt anyone. Like, are you out of your mind? When the data is overwhelming that it hurt individuals. In fact, there was a story out today. Lord Sumption wrote a piece for the Sunday Times of UK about the lockdown policy that could be called, he said, "I told you so." And here's a little just excerpt. He said, it was always obvious that you could not close down a country for months on end without serious consequences. The shocking thing that emerges from the interviews is the government refused to take them into account. There was no assessment of the likely collateral costs of the lockdown.
Well, there was, but we called those people crazy, right? I was one of them. Sure. I thought like, stop it. We all have to, don't be selfish. Nobody wanted to listen to that data because we were all scared out of our minds.
I remember Kid Rock in an interview with Tucker Carlson saying that. He's like, yeah, we all did that. He's like, I wash my hands like 80 times a day. I was like, okay, we're going to do lockdowns. This is all, I saw someone in the chat, 2 weeks to flatten the curve. This way, they were lying to us.
Yeah.
Buying a bunch
and
of
they
toilet
were
paper.
they were scaring us in order to get us to agree to these things. And, we didn't know. We're like, oh, okay, I guess we have to keep our kids home. Then.
So my
wasn't
question,
the
I come back to
Chicago-
my question comes back to the beginning, right? Which is, what did you know? When did you know it? And what were you hiding from us? When was the data available to you in the White House? When was the data available to you at the CDC? When was the data available to you at in the medical staff, that were driving these decisions at the World Health Organization, right? When did you know this? And why did you keep it a secret? And now only through court orders are we learning this shit.
Well, again, I point to the fact that, and I hate to say this, right, because at the time I didn't want to hear this from President Trump, but at the time President Trump was against the lockdowns and they really shut him down. And, I fell in line with the mainstream media, like, don't say that. You just don't want to deal with this, right?
Right.
But did he have economists and demographers who had this data? Surely this has been available for longer than before the pandemic.
Yeah, I want to point to people in the chat are saying, yeah, Lord Sumption is a great truth teller. By the way, if you're just curious with that article, I'll put it up on the screen again. It was from the Sunday Times, the UK, and basically the truth about lockdown and becoming impossible to deny. It was a disaster, he writes. So if you want to go check out that piece.
We're going to talk more about that as we get to the piece about corporal punishment in schools.
Yeah.
Because that's how we really owe our children one. So let's hit them.
I mean, there's also a whole new movement for lockdowns coming out. I mean, we're going to talk about this, I think, later this week on the show about more lockdowns, but this time not around COVID. You're going to hear there's plans in place at the World Health Organization and the World Economic Forum level to move towards lockdowns for climate purposes. So we're going to show you some of the videos that have been emerging from these globalists who want us to do that now as it relates to climate. David, were you going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say there was a moment where, it was somebody in Chicago. I can't remember. It wasn't the mayor, but somebody might have been the governor. But they said it wasn't about, what was going on. It was about compliance, like getting people to comply. And the problem I have is that they're still pushing all of this on kids. And it's like they're not looking at the long-term effects, or they're at least not admitting the long-term effects that this is going to have on children. And that's where I get really frustrated. Like, I was willing to, as an adult, I can make my own decision and all that. But as a child, they depend on us to make decisions for them. And if we're being forced to make those decisions for them, then that's where that's when I really got pissed off, is when they lowered that age.
Yeah.
And then you saw like last week that 4-year-old. There was a 4-year-old that they called the cops in Los Angeles because this 4-year-old wasn't wearing a mask to school. So like masking, lockdowns, the disastrous effects not only on children but businesses and entire communities in total denial about it. Again, when did they know this was going to be a problem? Many of them, we could argue, knew this beforehand, that it would have been an absolute disaster. Again, we're going to go through this again as we enter into movements on climate. Hey, we've got more news to get to here on the show. Please go ahead and smash that subscribe button if you would be so kind. Your name will pop up here on the big screen if you subscribe. We're nearing 1 million subscribers here on Redacted. We have a daily newsletter. If you go to redacted.inc, that's how you can subscribe to our daily newsletter. It's free. It's delivered to your inbox over your cup of coffee first thing in the morning. You can read it in about 5 or 10 minutes and cover some of the big stories of the day. We try to have a little humor with it. But again, first thing in the morning over your cup of coffee. Redacted.inc is the place to go. All right, let's talk about Ukraine. We've got, the full truth now, I think, in Ukraine is starting to come out. I want to put this headline up here on the screen, and I just want to let this sink in for a moment, okay? We'll come back to it in a second, but just put this up here on the screen. And I want you to think about this headline and the absurdity of the thing that you're reading, of what NATO is doing in Ukraine. Now, keep this up here for a second. I'm going to read it in case you're listening to the audio version. I'll read you this headline. It says, Pentagon recruiting and training ex-Afghan pilots to plug holes in Ukraine's Air Force.
Where'd they get them? We're not giving them visas.
Oh, no, some of them, these are in the United States, Afghan pilots who have signed a contract to go to Ukraine to fight on behalf of who? The United States? NATO? Ukrainians? On a suicide mission? Anyway, let that linger for a second, because we're going to come back to that in a moment. But I think you are watching the collapse of Western power happen in real time. So a couple of big stories that I want to call your attention to first. First, we're being told that the West is not in utter decline. They're lying to us about this. We heard this from the White House this afternoon, that we've built the strongest economy in U.S. history, according to Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, that there's no such thing as inflation. We're not in a recession because we changed the definition of that. And yet you're being lied to. All you need to do is look around. Today, NASA was set to launch their Artemis rocket, right? It'd be the first unmanned rocket to the moon and the first mission to the moon in 50 years. Why haven't we been back since 1972, by the way? Buzz Aldrin says we never went to the moon. I don't know if you know that. So he did. He said, well, an 8-year-old asked him that question. He said, why haven't we been back to the moon in so long? And he said, well, the real question is, well, we never went to the moon. We never went in the first place. Well, thank you, Buzz, for finally telling
Where are you going
the
with
truth.
this?
Well, anyway, that's just a side note.
Okay.
I was just thinking about that today. Buzz, by the way, Buzz is also, I've interviewed Buzz Aldrin, and some of the things, one of the things he said is, like, look, there's obelisks on Mars. Why are we not talking about these man-made structures on Mars? Thank you, Buzz. And he has all his handlers surrounding him, like telling him not to tell the truth about it. Anyway, sidebar. Sorry, I get off on my Buzz Aldrin
Is an
stuff.
obelisk man-made? That's also another tangent
I
that
don't
we
know.
need to refrain ourselves from. Let's go back to...
So, yeah, NASA today was set to launch their new moon rocket, the Artemis, right? It failed on the launch pad. What a really sad moment for America. Like, this was supposed to be like the end of summer. We're going back to the moon. All NASA's live feeds, all the network coverage. We have reporters down there, CNN reporters and MSNBC report. Everyone's down there at the launch pad. Failed. Failed. It failed. NASA scrapped the launch. Gas leaking all over the launch pad. Just watch this pitiful press conference with Bill Nelson, NASA administrator. It's embarrassing. Okay, here we go. He's got to restart it. Hold on.
I missed my cue because I thought you had went to it. So give me about 10 seconds, then I can play it.
All right, hold on. We're re-racking the video. All right, here we go.
Welcome back to the coverage of Artemis 1 launch here at the Launch Control Center at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. I am here with Administrator Bill Nelson, who was on hand for the launch today, which had hoped to be a big moment in history for the Space Center, but instead it'll have to wait for another day. The launch attempt was scrubbed. Administrator, thank you for being here. What are your thoughts? How are you feeling after all of this anticipation and build-up, and then unfortunately couldn't go today?
We don't launch until it's right. And in fact, they've got a problem with the gases going on the engine bleed on one engine. You can't go.
You can't go when your rocket is leaking gas.
No, can't.
The best country in the world, right? We hear that all the time. Greatest country in the world.
Don't worry, we have gas to spare.
Yeah. So we're leaking gas all over our moon rocket. Someone in the chat says, why are we going to the moon during a recession, by the way? Great question. So I'm sure this is, no big deal to worry about. This was going to launch our return to the moon, our manned missions back to the moon 50 years later.
I think that the average American, though, only contributes like 4 cents per year to NASA. So that might be why.
Maybe.
So it's not really costing you this much, but as an opportunity cost, sure, it's huge.
So this is part of the Western decline, right? These little moments that, in and of itself, it might not seem like much, but when you add it to the larger whole, I think it speaks volumes about our infrastructure crumbling. We can't even pass an infrastructure package in the United States of America. People are drowning in electric bills right now. Their energy costs are skyrocketing. They can't pay their bills. Then you have a brand new multi-billion-dollar flagship NATO warship, which was launched. They couldn't make it out of the port because of all kinds of mechanical problems. This aircraft cost billions of dollars. This aircraft carrier, billions of dollars. It was the top of the line British NATO warship.
Makes you wonder, is their heart really in it?
Or is this all part of the process where you have the military industrial complex? It doesn't matter because we make reusable crap that we know we're not really going to be using. We just need to come in and now provide maintenance on it for more billions of dollars and charge taxpayers. More and more, right? You may ask yourself, why in the hell does it cost us $6 billion to build a warship and the exact same warship costs the Chinese about $1 billion? Someone's getting ripped off. Why are we paying $6 billion more than what the Chinese can do? So these Chinese, and you want to keep provoking now. So this warship can't move. This aircraft carrier is stuck. The propeller is broken. There's a whole mess with the driving of this aircraft carrier. It cannot move. And yet we've paid billions of dollars for this. Now we want to keep provoking the Chinese bear by running warships through the Taiwan Strait this afternoon. This afternoon, China sent 37 ships into the Taiwan Strait. Look at that. You want to mess with that? That's after the United States did the same thing. They sent a few ships there the other night. And
Maybe they're just coming in to tow us out of there. Did you ever think of that?
It's a tugboat.
Can you put that picture back up, Philip? I don't know if you can, but just look at that. We got a warship, that can't move, and you have this armada going through the Taiwan Strait.
And the first ones are submarines.
Yeah, right? Here are our subs. Here's all of our, This is a portion.
You can't see.
Exactly. Yeah, this is just here. Oh, we'll just send a fraction of what we have to the Taiwan Strait, crossing over the median line into Taiwan, by the way. So, again, this is what the West is dealing with. And then, of course, you have this announcement today from the White House. The White House sets a date for the first hunger conference. Okay. This event will be the first of its kind in over 50 years as inflation in the United States strains food budgets. So the greatest country in the world is leaking gasoline over a launch pad in Florida, trying to get back to the moon. It can't. NATO and its its allies are launching aircraft carriers that are stuck and can't move because they're broken down. We can't even get the F-35s off the ground properly. So in fact, that aircraft carrier is going to be landing airplanes that actually don't even work. And we have an aircraft carrier that can't actually get out of the water and move anywhere. And then we have a hunger conference because people are starving right now.
I'm wondering, if the F-35 is what's going to be landing on that aircraft carrier that doesn't move. We got
the $3 trillion that we've wasted on the F-35 program, the absolute disaster. So I think Ralph Schulhammer, friend of the show, Ralph Schulhammer, said it best with this little clip I want to play for you.
Is that the nations that built the industrialized world, they have lost their stamina, right? Think about it this way. In the United States, the average environmental impact study by the US government takes 5 years to be ready. Compare this to the building of the Golden Gate Bridge in the 1930s. That took 4 years. The Hoover Dam took 5 years. The Germans can no longer build an airport under 14 years. So there are things we simply can no longer do.
Yeah. And now Germany is wanting to prop up Ukraine with additional weapons and wants to modernize Ukraine's military that was announced today. So we're all in on Ukraine. The United States is about to send more HIMARS vehicles to Ukraine. And this comes as the Pentagon, in a new report out this week, also admits that they think almost all of these weapons now are going to the black market. They can't track them. They can't find them. From the Pentagon. So you have a Pentagon whistleblower coming out and admitting that these things are winding up on the black market. Well, let's just keep sending them shit. So meanwhile,
I guess I'm a bigger patriot than you, Clayton, because I'm willing to starve for Ukraine. You know what I mean? We got to send them more money so they can win this. So I'm willing to starve. I'm a
It
true
doesn't
patriot.
count if you are a proponent of intermittent fasting. Okay.
Okay.
So
yeah, today was his today is his fasting day. So today he's fasting for Ukraine.
He's fasting for Ukraine.
Yes.
Okay.
And again, I remind you that most of the data shows that the world has enough food for its population. It's more a distribution problem and a waste problem than an actual we need to starve.
Right.
It's the global economy. There is enough food.
Right. Well, when you have consolidation of power and they take all of your farms away from you and they control the supply and then the little people don't get the food, right? Yes, of course, there's the food, but when you take it all away and Bill Gates buys up farmland and they run farmers out of business, that's what happens. So meanwhile, something big is about to happen in Ukraine. So get ready for it. This afternoon, NATO-led Ukrainian forces bombed the roof of a nuclear power plant. So they did continue to bomb the nuclear power plant in Zaporizhzhia. This is, they hit the building near reactor number 2. This is the worst attack yet. We can throw up some of these photos here, Philip, if you would. This is the worst attack yet on the plant to date. These attacks are being directed by U.S. intelligence and the use of NATO weapons to do this. Now,
stop it. People are going to die, and we're all going to have nuclear bread as a result.
This building, by the way, that you're looking at here with these holes in the roof, holds the nuclear fuel storage, which is the largest in Europe. If that fuel gets hit, the whole thing goes up, okay? This is, if you look at these pictures between reactor 2 and 6 of the power plant in the background, the roof of this building is in the foreground, is totally breached. The building just beyond it houses the nuclear reactor there. See number 2 right there? Yeah, the nuclear reactor is right there. So this is the fuel storage building that was hit. So this afternoon, Russia calling on international inspectors to get to the plant now. Get there now.
They said they pulled the head of the EMEI, that they pulled him out of his vacation. So where is he?
Well, we finally got word today that the inspectors are going to the plant. But not just yet. They're not going to go today. They're going to go by Friday. So here is the tweet we got this afternoon. By the way, this will give them more time. This will give Ukraine and NATO more time to continue to bomb this nuclear power plant. This is the UN's International Atomic Energy Agency. Look at this photo. They're like, yeah, we're serious. We're here. We're coming. The day has come. It looks like
the setup for the start of the Rhythm Nation video.
It does, doesn't it? They got the jackets on, like they're all wearing the same jackets. So the Watchdog's chief, he tweeted this picture out, Rafael Grossi. He announced that they are coming. We are coming, and we're on our way. We must protect the safety and security of Ukraine's and Europe's biggest nuclear facility. We are proud to lead the mission. There are no representatives, by the way, and I do like this. I do appreciate this. No representatives from the UK are allowed to go in this, and the United States, because they said they are backing Zelensky and the Zelensky regime. So we don't want any U.S. or U.K. representatives on this nuclear inspections team to come here with us. We're going to go in independently and look. And what they're going to find, of course, is U.S. weapons being used to attack this building. We had confirmation of this last week, of course, that HIMARS being used to attack, in addition to which we know that there are Ukrainian rocket shells that were already found hitting this, and they're continuing to hit every day. Now, meanwhile, there's a whole big movement here towards this counteroffensive, which we're hearing from the Ukrainian side. So Zelensky, I think what he just said this morning or last night in his Sunday address could lead us into World War III. So what Zelensky said yesterday is, even though the Donbass is completely under Russian control and almost completely now under Russian control as of this afternoon, that hasn't stopped Ukrainian President Zelensky from saying, hey, we're going to do something stunning. Take a listen.
Українці, українки, щороку в останні вихідні літа в нашій державі відзначалося два свята. Дуже тісно пов'язані. День міста Донецьк і День Шахтаря.
So what he says is, we have not forgotten. We will not forget any of our cities, of any of our people. Now Donbass is almost completely destroyed by Russian strikes. Devastated, he says. The proud and glorious Ukrainian Donetsk was humiliated by the Russian occupation and robbed. But Ukraine will return, for sure. Life will return. The dignity of the people of Donbass will return. The ability to live will return. The opportunity to live safely and happily will return. So basically, he's saying there that we are now going to go and completely attack the Donbass and take it back. It will be ours. Make no mistake about it. It will return to Ukrainian glory.
You know why they want this is because those regions have all of the natural resources, all the mining, all the ores, all the resources that you need to run a modern society are in the eastern part of Ukraine. The rest of Ukraine is agriculture. They need it basically to survive, to pay back all of these loans that they're taking in order to take weaponry.
So Jim Scioto.
Wait, you mean we're going to get this paid back? That wasn't. We're going to get all these billions back.
No,
eventually.
we want it back because they don't care about the people
Well,
of
we
Donbass.
pretend we are.
I mean, they've been attacking them for 8 years, so it's not that they care about the people of that region. If they care about the resources, perhaps.
Well, Russia is already rich in mining natural resources in order to sort of run a global economy. Russia, and now with this area of Ukraine under their under their watch, they have even more, and Ukraine has even less. And so, like, they literally cannot afford to lose it. Otherwise, they are just an agricultural country, and they can't afford that. So, I mean, that's not to say they can win. Most likely, they can't. But it's another reason why they want it.
Well, this morning on CNN, right on cue, CNN with a without a moment, with a moment by moment account of how Ukraine is going to fight back. So get ready for everyone. The massive Ukrainian counterstrike was supposed to happen today. Okay. Now the world was waiting for it. 6 months into the war, we've heard repeatedly how Ukraine was going to launch a counterattack. And now leave it up to Jim Skiodu. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. He's a reporter with CNN, probably a mouthpiece of the intelligence community. He has this scoop this afternoon. Okay, this morning he tweeted this out. This was early this afternoon. Here was his scoop that he got. Scoop: Ukrainian forces have begun shaping operations in southern Ukraine to prepare the battlefield for a significant Ukrainian counteroffensive. 2 senior U.S. officials briefed on the intel tell me. So hold this up here on the screen for a little bit. U.S. believes the long-anticipated counteroffensive will include air and ground operations. Okay, so a couple of things. First of all, 2 U.S. senior officials telling you about Ukrainian forces. So who's driving the traffic here? Clearly the United States and NATO. This is not coming from you. And the second piece of this is, what Ukrainian forces are going to lead a counteroffensive that we've been hearing about for so long? Here's how Wyatt Reed says this. So a CNN reporter tells us a massive U.S. counterstrike. He says, so NATO is supposedly preparing for a Ukrainian counteroffensive by publicly announcing when and where it will take place and specifying the types of units involved. Sounds totally legit.
Right.
Great point. And then on top of that, you have this afternoon new videos continuing to surface of Ukrainian forces in the Donbass, the very forces that are supposed to be leading this counteroffensive. By the way, I'm anti-war, I'm anti-violence, I'm anti any of this attacks. But I'm highly anti-propaganda and Western media bullshit. And so what I want to do is call out the stuff that we're being spoon-fed by people like on CNN. So this is video of Ukrainian forces that just released talking about how they have nothing and they're being totally destroyed. Watch this. We are the soldiers of the 93rd Independent Mechanized Brigade, 2nd Rifle Battalion, 6th Company. We inform you that our units, such as the 4th, 5th, and 6th Companies, were sent to defend Soledar and left to fend for themselves. Look how thin he is, by the way. We only have small arms and light weapons. We are being destroyed by enemy artillery, tanks, mortars, and aircraft. There is no fire support from our side. When reinforcements were requested, multiple rocket launcher and BMPs hit our positions. So they're being attacked by... There are a lot of dead defenders at our positions, and no one takes them away. The wounded are only taken away if they can get to the evacuation point, which is almost 2 kilometers under fire. The severely wounded remain at their positions and die before getting help. After we appealed to our commanders, they received an order from battalion headquarters to take away our weapons and leave us here. And those who left their positions were ordered to be shot.
Get them out of there. Stop this now. Peace now.
Peace now. But no, Boris Johnson, who of course flew to Ukraine last week to once again tell them the UK position, which is no peace, no settlement, let people continue to die. And this afternoon, we got word from, on the Russian side at least, that Ukraine's attempt at a counteroffensive has failed, according to Russia. Kiev's troops suffered great losses in a failed attack on Kherson, ordered by President Zelensky, Moscow claims. Ukraine's much heralded counteroffensive in Kherson has failed miserably, the Russian Defense Ministry said on Monday. listing the total losses suffered by Kiev at the end of the day. The Ukrainian forces attempted to attack in 3 directions in orders of President Vladimir Zelensky, but made no gains, Moscow said. Russian troops caused great losses to the Ukrainian attackers during the day's battles, including 26 tanks, 23 armored fighting vehicles, 9 more armored vehicles, and then ground attack jets. So where are they going to get these? Where are they going to get these fighter pilots? Where are they going to get these jets? Where are they going to get any of this? Well, the Pentagon is now recruiting and training ex-Afghan pilots to plug holes in Ukraine's Air Force. I about fell out of my chair going through this data. The U.S. Department of Defense plans to recruit former Afghanistan pilots who fled Afghanistan after we left them there.
Again, how are they getting visas? We're not issuing visas to them.
I guess we're giving them a contract because apparently if they sign up, if these Afghan pilots...
That's how we get them out. Like, well, we can't really take you. We're busy taking Ukrainian refugees. But if we could put you in a plane,
and
use your life.
Suicide
absolutely
mission.
None of them are Taliban, right? I mean, ex-Taliban or anything. Like we've.
Oh, I'm sure we've totally
vetted
them all. We only use them when we need them, and then when we don't need them anymore, we kill them or we send them into suicide missions, which is what we do.
So I think this is how we get around. We get around the giving them visas is we send them to Ukraine as fighter pilots. They fight, become heroes of Ukraine, become citizens of Ukraine, and then we of course take refugees from Ukraine readily. Bam. Instant Ukrainian citizen via Afghan pipeline. It makes total sense to me.
One little caveat
That
to
seems
that, though.
like a passport scam. I don't know about that.
It does, but that can't work because they are brown.
Oh, right. Yeah, so brown people, exactly. You don't give them fast track to citizenship. Only if you're only Ukrainian and you look Ukrainian, then you can come right into the United States, no problems. But if you're Afghan and we've destroyed your country for 20 years, you cannot come to the United States. Mm-hmm. So as we know, according to the Pentagon began recruiting former Afghan pilots who ran to the United States together with the Americans a year ago, according to the report. Their training now kicks off in California, with plans to subsequently dispatch them to them to Ukraine via Poland, the source says. We've spent hundreds of $billions in Ukraine for what? So we can get Afghan pilots to fly suicide missions in Ukraine. That's my take on this. I mean, we've spent hundreds of $billions in Ukraine. They have no Air Force left. We keep hearing about a counteroffensive, which was totally destroyed today. This little whatever it was in Kherson. Kherson was trending on Twitter today because here it comes. Here's the massive counteroffensive. And yet we continue to funnel billions of dollars into this country and not push for peace. It's a tragedy. It's an absolute tragedy.
Well, the eastern region in Ukraine fought against becoming a part of Ukraine in the first place less than 10 years ago.
Right.
So that, okay. But again, it shows that there's money there. That's why they want it so badly, because they need to be a country that's rich in natural resources to compete with Russia.
It just blows my mind that this is like whenever I think it can't get any more bizarre, we up proxy war to the point where we'll take people from a country we invaded, put them in planes and have them go fight our proxy war for us.
Yeah.
That is so absolutely bizarre to me. It blows my mind.
I mean, and they're
right?
signing a contract with them. They're like, you can become a United States citizen, or you have residency in the United States. You got to sign a contract with the Pentagon that says you're going to go fly sorties over Ukraine. It's a suicide mission. You will be destroyed. You will be shot down immediately.
But think about the tragedy of that is that people would take that deal in order to get their families to come over with them out of the Taliban regime, where they are threatened because they were allies of the U.S.
Yeah. So you destroyed my country for 20 years. What choice do I have? Now I managed to flee because you gave me training to fight your proxy war in Afghanistan. Now I'm here in the United States training
because
in
they'll
California.
do it to get their families out, if that is a part of the offer, which we don't know if it is
I would
or not.
love to know if anyone, by the way, has seen a copy of these documents, these contracts with these Afghan pilots. I would love to know about it. Send it to me. You can email me at clayton@redacted.inc. I would love to take a look at these because I think our audience would like to see more of this information. Clayton at redacted.inc. We've got more news to get to. We're going to talk about the disaster in Poland, the European Union just declaring a state of emergency a short time ago this afternoon. They're going to hold an emergency meeting. We're going to show you unbelievable stories in Poland as the energy crisis gets underway as we head into these dark, dark winters. Then we're also going to look down the effects of lockdowns on children and how now we're turning to corporal punishment in schools because some of these kids are acting out. So here's the solution. Let's hit our kids. Because that's a solution, you morons. Anyway, we'll talk about that story.
As my grandma used to say, I'm going to give you something to cry about.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll give you something to cry about.
Okay.
I've heard that one.
You have.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're going to tell you about our show sponsor over at stamps.com. Now, you know that the summer is just about over and it's time to get back to work, right? And so if you, like me, are excited to have your days free when your kids go back to school, you can focus on getting things done more efficiently, or maybe you have been efficient the whole summer, in which case, good for you. But if you're a small business owner, you know how important it is to be ready for the insane holiday season coming up. And if you haven't started preparing for the chaos of holiday mailing and shipping, you are behind, my friend. So you can catch up with stamps.com. They have everything you need to make your life a whole lot easier. It's a 24/7 post office that you can access from anywhere. No lines, no traffic, no hassle, no arguing with the person at the counter because you don't have your own tape, because you know they don't let you use their tape. And that I think is wrong. Stamps.com is one of your one-stop shop for all your shipping and mailing needs. For more than 20 years, Stamps.com has been indispensable for over 1 million businesses. Now, with inflation on the rise, every dollar counts, and you can protect your margins with major discounts on USPS and UPS rates. I've noticed that shipping rates have just gone through the roof. But if you're using your Stamps.com account, you get discounts, which you really need.
And you use that code redacted.
Yes. So to get ahead of the holiday chaos this year, start shipping your stuff easily. Sign up with promo code REDACTED for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a free digital scale. That's very exciting. Some hardware. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to stamps.com, click the microphone at the top of the page, and enter the code REDACTED.
All right, let's talk about this energy crisis. So this afternoon, a bombshell moment for the European Union. A state of emergency over the energy crisis. So now they're calling a meeting. They're trying to get everyone together. Here is the front page of the Financial Times this afternoon. EU to unveil emergency measures to curb soaring energy prices. European leaders are set to hold an emergency meeting to deal with this crisis. A man-made crisis, of course. Those are my words. A man-made crisis of their own choosing. They didn't have to sanction Russia and cause their own destruction, but they decided to do that. That's exactly what they did. Newsflash, they are already in a recession. Listen to this afternoon.
Right now, I mean, as far as Europe's headed into a recession, I mean, if you look at power prices across the Europe, not just the EU, I mean, they're literally we're not even at winter yet, and they're hitting an energy crisis. So they're definitely headed towards a recession.
Yeah, they're heading. So think about that. We're like, it's still hot as shit outside, so we're not even. So now you have people like so worried about buying up firewood right now in Germany, getting as much of their hands on they can as wood stoves, because they know winter is coming, right? And so of course they're also dealing with a drought too. So if it's like, how can we be dealing with both things at once? How are we dealing with this worrying about deep freeze, not being able to heat our homes, and yet it's ridiculously hot outside, and our water table has dropped so much that we've had a drought that we haven't seen in 500 years. That's the drought that they're dealing with. So much so that The Guardian this afternoon published this piece that Britons need to be less squeamish about drinking water from sewage, says the agency head.
Well, actually, okay, but that's an extreme headline. But there is a lot of innovation in recycling, urine and I read a whole book about it. Unquenchable. So
sell us on this.
I'm not selling you on this. I'm saying that we need to understand more long-term solutions, and that there is technology that can filter human waste.
Bear Grylls already sold me on that.
Right. Yes, I watched his episode where he would drink his own. Yes. Okay. So, all right, Britons, you heard it here.
I'm not saying drink your unfiltered pee. I'm saying that be open to the technology that can filter your pee.
Okay.
You know, there's a finite amount of water.
He just let it drip down a rope.
I think he did. Yeah. Or he put it through a T-shirt, right? Yeah. So there you go. But this is what we need to do, right? We need to embrace these things right now because we don't have enough of it. We don't have enough of these resources. We don't have enough energy. We don't have enough wood. We don't have enough coal. We don't have enough anything right now because we're having to ration things. So here's what Poland is doing today. Take a look at this. This is Poland rationing now. We've been watching the effects of the Russian sanctions on average working class people all over Europe and the United States. Energy prices surging to a point of mass protests are taking place across Europe. And experts estimating the cost of natural gas and coal in the winter will skyrocket by orders of magnitude. So this is in Poland where coal is king, okay? And these are people lined up to get coal at a plant. They're not even, they usually handle like big distribution of semi-trucks and rail lines. They're not even set up to handle like an individual pulling up in their car to get coal. So these people have been waiting for days, sleeping in their cars just to get coal from this power plant. And they're saying there's a black market that has emerged as a result of it. Do we have the soundbite of the black market? Did I play that?
Is it run by Santa Claus?
Yeah, I didn't put it in there.
Yeah, we have it.
That?
Okay, go ahead and play this. This is, it's gotten so bad that the entire black market has emerged where people are filling up their cars and then selling the coal at a higher price on the black market in Poland. Watch.
Yesterday, on Thursday, we launched a point for small coal buyers, up to 6 tons, but it is also needed to mention the formalities. We have introduced a 2-step formal path in order to eliminate situations where people were coming here, taking a spot in the queue, and selling it to someone else or trading the coal illegally later.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, look at that. So people are lining up for days, sleeping in their car, and they're like, we're terrified. We have no, and they're saying like, we don't have, there's no other mechanism for us here in Poland to survive. Coal is it. Coal is it. Now let's put up this Britain heating full screen if you have it there. So nearly 1 in 4 adults in Britain plan to never turn on the heat this winter, according to a new poll. They're going to turn it on at all because they simply can't afford it. And now this U.S. energy headline out also about the tsunami of shutoffs happening in the United States. 20 million U.S. homes are behind on energy bills. An additional 20 million are falling behind their utility bills, leading to a tsunami of shutoffs, according to Bloomberg.
Now, that was not allowed during the pandemic. When people could not pay their energy bills, power companies were not allowed to turn them off. They had to keep them on. So obviously, power companies, they've had it, right? With people in arrears. They're not going to just keep these homes connected anymore after 2 years.
So, I mean, you just look across Europe, though. I mean, what's so troubling, when Poland produces over 50 million tons from its own mines every year, imported coal, much of it from Russia, much of it, almost all of it from Russia, is a household staple because of competitive prices and the fact that Russian coal is sold in lumps that are more suitable for home use. So, I mean, you have this black market, emerging, and I was looking at some different tweets today from some different Polish individuals saying this. So here's coal tweet number 1. My girlfriend is Polish. I'll be there this winter. 90% of normal people in Poland rely on coal now to heat their homes. My girlfriend's family included. Most in the country don't have central heating and air like we do in the States. Houses won't be able to afford heating their homes above 60 degrees. Robert says this. This is what happens when the elite wants to start World War III and keep the masses living in fear.
Right, because it's all right for some. People who have money will be able to keep their homes warm enough. But cold kills far more people than heat does every single year. And will the media pick up on that the same way that it has for all of the heat wave related deaths? Probably not. Right.
It's really, really sad. And you think about the elderly people who can't afford it. They're, on
fixed income who just can't, they can't go into
leave
debt.
to go get it.
Right. Yeah. Well, so that's what's happening in Poland on this black market. There are people that they know that there are people that can't get in their car and go. So you have multiple individuals that are pulling up in their hatchback, like small car. and they're bringing the paperwork for their other family members that are elderly that can't come and get their own coal. And they're like, we've been camped out here for 2 days. We hope they'll accept the paperwork of my family members. They can't come. Otherwise, I'm only getting it for myself. And then that's it. And I'm not going to be able to, they have to share with their family, of course, but they're putting the coal in their trunk of their like little Subaru hatchback. How long is that going to last you in your home? Here's another tweet. Russia has gas. If boycotting Russian gas was driven by care for humanity, the Democratic Republic of Congo, minerals, and others from most parts of Africa would be boycotted too.
Yeah.
Think about that for a minute, right? Let that sink in.
Right.
Like, think about all of the ways in which we get those minerals and through all sorts of horrible means, right? The imperial powers do. So we would boycott all of that stuff too. Why aren't we boycotting the United States, who just stole enormous tonnage of oil from Syria? Again, why are we choosing our boycotts here? Here's the German Google searches. Take a look at this. This is German Google searches for firewood right now. This is for Brennholz, which is firewood in German. They've exploded over the last couple of months as people are trying to figure out, where can I get firewood right now? Since we're not going to have gas, we're not going to have coal, so I need to get some firewood, and it's sold out everywhere, or it's up 30% in cost to buy beechwood right now. So this is why the European Union is holding an emergency meeting and set to meet and trying to figure out what to do. It looks like the European Union is going to try to put together a package of some sort of incentives to help European people right now with, I don't know, money, and I don't know what sort of tax breaks. I don't know what. So
this is awful.
Unless they're going to deliver coal right to their house, they're going to be cold. Like, that's great that you're going to do like a money package to people, but at the end of the day, they still don't have the physical thing to heat their home.
Right.
So you might send them a check.
That's why I always think it's so stupid. Yeah, it's so stupid when they're like, hey, we're going to give you a break on your taxes at the end of the year, but you don't have the cash right now. You don't have the cash to go do something right now. So what the hell good are those tax benefits going to do you?
Right. So, in Poland, you're going to give them what? And then they still don't have the coal to heat their homes. In Germany, they don't have the wood. Again, this is all a crisis of their own making.
Well, anytime you limit access to cheap electricity or cheap energy, right, it hurts the poorest first, and it does not hurt the middle class. And it's so, for those of you who are looking for a silver lining, saying, well, maybe it will drive innovation and we'll all like have a cleaner energy that we can all use. Not in the meantime. Poor people will have to die in the meantime, right? That has to be happening simultaneously, and it won't if we allow the weakest among us to just sort of die off.
I think the only people that are doing that are like the coastal like liberals and the elites. Do you know anyone in our sphere that's like, well, this is good, this is good. This is forcing people off of coal, so they're going to be forced to put solar panels on their homes.
I once thought like that, I guess.
No, you didn't.
I think maybe I thought like, oh, this will heal
you didn't
Mother
think
Nature,
that in terms
and we can
of,
all.
No, hold on. I want to defend you here. You didn't think this in terms of like, the war and sanctions. You thought.
Oh no. I thought like, oh, good, we can all return to being tribal hippies and like heat ourselves in teepees together, and heal the earth that way.
Like pioneer, like homesteaders. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I thought.
When we talked about crypto for a long time on this channel, it's like, you have to have some kind of infrastructure. There's an infrastructure already in place, and you can't just replace it. There has to be a process to get there. So it's not like, hey, we're going to have to get away from coal. Guess what? No more coal. You're going to have to figure out a different solution when your home's not outfitted with anything to burn anything different than coal or gas or anything. So it's like everything has to be a process over time to get the supply and then to retrofit the heating structures in order to do something like that. It can't just happen.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I wish that we could all be sort of more connected to the earth. Like, what's that documentary you saw about the people who live in Russia and in like Siberia and know how to live off of jerky the whole year and keep themselves, right? They work in summer to be able to live winter. Like, that would be lovely, but almost none of us have that skill set anymore. So we can't just let people die because they only know how to live in the modern world.
Yeah, and I don't want to eat jerky for the rest of my life, and I don't want to live in Siberia.
I would.
But even Elon Musk over the past 24 hours came out and tweeted that said, I know, because you're on your meat diet.
That's because he's on a keto diet.
Yeah. I think Elon Musk over the past 24 hours came out and said something about that the global economy would totally collapse without coal and gas. Like, we need fossil fuels. Here's the guy that, like, arguably, not pioneered, but certainly pioneered the EV revolution that made it into our modern vernacular. Here's the guy that's relying on batteries and solar power, telling us we need gas, we need coal to survive right now. And one of the things he also talks, if you think about it in terms of, some of the other day tweeted me and said, I was watching your show and you were bashing something, and then you turned around and said, but we have solar panels on our house. And I said, yeah, that doesn't mean, let me explain that for a second. Okay. So we have solar panels on our house, but
we are still connected to the grid.
Yeah. And so when it's not sunny, guess what happens? We have to still pull from the grid, which is then powered by coal and fossil fuels. Like, without that, sure, it's great that we can actually, provide and have some battery backup and be able to provide and cover our heating with the sun and these lights in the studio and stuff like that. But that's not you can't cover a whole country in solar panels. It just won't work. You cannot replace these fossil fuels with solar and wind. When there's no wind and there's no solar, it's gone. That's why you need nuclear power. That's why you need fossil fuels. You can't just rely on these things. It's great to supplement it.
It's never going to be the thing that replaces the current energy system that we've got right now. We need something else.
Well, I was going to say, even manufacturing those things probably depends on coal and stuff,
Yeah.
Somebody texting you?
All right. So we've got more news to get to here on the show. We're going to talk about lockdowns and spanking in just a second. The spanking that you might not like.
Hey, really quick, can I just say Tiffany Twisted?
You do.
Well, some of you.
Yeah, who's
Tiffany Twisted subscribed. Like, her name is Tiffany Twisted. She's got a Mercedes Benz from Hotel California. So.
Oh yeah,
That's awesome.
That's right. I was like, I know that song, just not in that voice.
Like it.
Just doing a Don Henley's voice. Yeah, if you do subscribe, your name will pop up here. We're nearing 1 million subscribers. Maybe we'll hit it by the end of the show today. See if you guys can. We have 13,000, 14,000 people watching right now. So hopefully if you subscribe, it'll go there.
And if you hit that like button, you help us to find other like-minded individuals. So please do if you haven't already.
All right, let's talk about spanking, shall we?
Oh, sure. Okay.
So,
hang on one second.
Okay.
That didn't have those notes up. All right. Well, a school district in Missouri wants to start using corporal punishment to deal with unruly kids because, kids are monsters, right? Right? Am I right? Am I right? Well, in fact...
I'll be here all week. Anyone here from out of town? Am I right?
Is this thing on?
Comply.
So spanking kids is a new policy in Missouri.
Right. So, in fact, the state has allowed this. It never went away, but more school districts are starting to adopt this. In fact, schools around the U.S., though, are reporting behavioral problems since the pandemic, basically behavior problems galore. In July, the National Center for Educational Statistics released a study showing that 87% of schools report that the pandemic negatively impacted socio-emotional development, and 83% said that students' behavior development was also stunted. So here are the specific incidents of behavior issues that are being reported in public schools. Classroom disruptions from student misconduct, 56%. Acts of disrespect towards teacher and staff, 48%. Rowdiness outside of the classroom, 49%. These are increases in this behavior. And prohibited use of electronic devices, 42%, which I find is interesting, right? Because we made them go to school on their screens, and now we're saying get off your screens for school. And the human brain doesn't do that so easily. Now, in response, schools are asking for more support staff for mental health, student socio-emotional development, and classroom training. They're not going to get that, right? No. Budget cuts and all. The U.S. doesn't spend money on education, spends it on war. So put that investment out of your head. But then what do? Well, let's beat it out of the little shits, right? This is what one school district in Missouri said they're going to do because parents were concerned about behavior problems. I'm sorry, the audio is a little tinny on this video, but listen to how this administrator justifies this.
One of the suggestions that came out was concerns about student discipline, and so we reacted by implementing several different strategies, corporal punishment being one of them.
Dr. Johnson says this change will give principals one more disciplinary option before students receive more serious punishments such as suspensions. Administrators say it would be the last resort for parents and faculty members if other means of discipline do not work.
Okay, last resort, right? So I went to the school board website to see how this would be implemented because it's new in the year 2022. We're designed to start spanking, right? So this school district in Missouri says, for the purposes of this policy, corporal punishment is the use of physical force as a method of correcting student behavior, put a pin on that, corporal punishment as a measure of correction or of maintaining discipline and order in schools is permitted. However, it shall be used only when all other alternative means of discipline have failed, and then only in reasonable form and upon the recommendation of the principal. It should never be inflicted in the presence of other students. So at least you're not humiliating them by hitting them in front of other people. Okay.
Oh, they get to go to a room.
Yeah, this is my question,
you go
right?
To the spanking room.
Yeah.
So wait a minute.
My grandma had a crying room. You go to the crying room.
So you have to opt into this. So parents sign up for this.
So it's consent.
Right. So the parents consented to this. We're not going to do it in front of students. We have to go to the spanking room. And like your sister pointed out, we were talking about this before the show. She's like, "Did they have like a list of approved beating implements that are on a wall? Like there's
like
a paddle.
Strap.
You can pick which one you want."
Belt.
Like they'd say, go to the principal's office, and you would go to the principal's office, and you'd get 3 whacks with a paddle there. Like they had a paddle that was specifically for that, and you would go to the principal's office, and he did it.
Wow.
Did that happen to you?
I did get it once, yes.
Oh, Philip.
I got it once. I got it once too.
Wow.
You both got hit by an administrator?
Now my 6th grade or 5th grade teacher, Mr. Cook, he actually spanked me for doing something in class. And the person that I was messing with, just playing with, made me put my hands on that kid's desk and look him in the face when he gave me 3 whacks.
Oh my God.
And look how screwed up you are as a result of it.
Sorry for I know.
You know,
it's part of why I have the beard.
I mean, think about this. So my dad told me this story. He went to Catholic school. He, in 19.
Oh yeah, they like beating those
1940s or whatever. Early 1940s, 1950s, and he would get whacked by the nuns would whack the crap out of his hands, and that happened all the time. That's why then he vowed he would never hit his children. Like that was like, no.
And so, yeah, we were sort of talking about this over dinner, and it's not to joke about, but a little bit. We're like, is there a wall where you get your own switch, or like, okay, hands on the desk, and then, in a spanking room, I don't know. So further about this school's policy, it says corporal punishment shall be administered only by certified personnel. So there be certified spankers, right?
What?
You can't just, like, if someone really I have a student that really pisses me off and I want to be the one to hit him, if you're not certified, so there's going to be, I guess, certification classes.
What creep is going to sign up for that job? Can you imagine the perverts that are going to be?
I'm a 3rd grade teacher and I'm a certified spanker.
Hey, what do you do for a living? Yeah, I'm the one that.
And I don't just do it in school.
I spank the 5th grade girls. That's my job. My name is Beavis, and these are the perverts that are going to sign up for this job, like these job postings.
Okay.
Don't you think? Like that's your job. You have to be certified. Like that's the guy.
Let's go back to the rules.
Well, no, and will they?
Go ahead. Your question
I was gonna say,
first.
will they pull from the school, or will they be like volunteers that come in? Like, hey, we got a spanking we need done. All right, I'm on my way.
Or, I mean, here's the way I see it. It's probably going to be a school, somebody who's already currently working at the school who then gets extra hours. You know how they'll be like the person who then also does after school stuff to make a few extra hours, a few extra bucks as a teacher, right? They'll do like the after school activities or something like that, and they hang out after school.
Or could let's say the secretary, do it because she wants to have an extra certification? I don't know. Let's go back to the rules.
Just don't put her address out there.
It says when it becomes necessary, okay, I take issue with this part of it ever becoming necessary, but let's keep going. To use corporal punishment, it shall be administered so that there can be no chance of bodily injury or harm. So you have to just, like if you think of a person as a video game avatar and they've got like a lifeline, like you can't really go down their lifeline, right? Striking a student on the head.
Mental though.
Yes, striking a student on the head or the face is not permitted. So then, but
that leaves back,
right?
Yeah, back, upper neck, like that's all on the table.
On your ass, neck.
Okay.
Elbows.
Elbows. Yeah. So this is being used, they say, as a measure of correction. Only experts agree that physical punishment does not act as a deterrent. In fact, spanking causes more behavioral problems. Many students have shown that physical punishment, including spanking, hitting, and other means of causing pain, can lead to aggression, antisocial behavior, physical injury, and mental health problems for children. It's also worth noting that spanking is highly correlated with lower grades. So schools are the last places you would think that want to do something. Go ahead and look at this study. This is just one of many. I mean, I could talk a blue streak about how spanking is harmful for children. That's not the purpose of this segment. I think that we can all agree that the pandemic has hurt children unnecessarily. We could have enacted means-based protection, such as protecting the elderly or the immunocompromised. We chose not to do that. We had data from the beginning that showed that children were not at risk of COVID. So we also know that children are meant to play with others, not on screens. Humans are meant to learn as apprentices, not from books or Zoom classes. So we took them out of environments that were good for them. And now we're putting them back. They can't figure out how to behave, right? And so we should hit them. We also know that each year lost of education is correlated with lower life expectancy. This is from a study called The Effect of Educational Attainment on Adult Mortality in the United States. So people who have lower levels of education have higher rates of mortality. This has been duplicated over and over again.
Someone in their chat just says, I used to beat my boys and now they're Navy SEALs. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I have no judgment on this, but I do have a lot of data, right? So we harmed them by taking them out of school. We cost them years of their lives. And in some cases, because some of them lost education, they will not give back. This will hurt the poorest children the hardest, right? And now because they can't behave, we can hit them, right? Because of choices that we made that impacted them negatively. So I just want to have a question.
Well,
when are we going to stop harming children?
Yeah, and they're not even taking into consideration. What if that kid's getting hit at home, then they're going to school, and the reason that they are acting out is because they're getting hit at home, and then they're getting hit at school. That's just like psychologically gonna even myself, I was spanked by my parents as a kid, and what did I do? I took it out on my brothers. Until I got to I think I was probably 19 or 20 before I started looking internally and was like, I stopped being a bully to my brothers. Like I took it out on them. And I think that that's what's going to happen with kids. Like, and you're just backing that up with data is that if they're hit all the time, they're going to want to hit others.
Do you want to apologize to Philip right here and now?
Oh, I did. Okay. I took psilocybin and I wrote apology letters to my mom, my brothers. Like,
Aw.
I'm good.
I mean, I think, so we shut people down for 2 years. We irreversibly damaged these children, right? We forced them into this like virtual learning experience. We told them, we forced them into masks. We forced them into vaccines. We did all of this shit to them, right? And I don't know, it's going to be, we're going to see maybe in 10, 15 years, the full data set from this generation of children and what it's done to them. It's incredibly troubling. Now we're going to, because of all the shit we did to them now they're having social problems. Now they're having anxiety. They're having depression. They're having all these other issues. Now they get to school and they act out speech issues. Now we're gonna smack them at school. Like nothing good comes from this. Nothing good comes from this.
Well, how much of this stuff, like every story that we hear, doesn't it feel like we are going backwards in so many things? Like we're talking about coal, we're talking about all this stuff. It's like we're going backwards instead of forward.
Yeah, I read a book years ago called The Blessings of a Skinned Knee, and it talks about how when children act out, they're asking you to notice something. It acts almost as a post-it, like something's wrong here, address this, whatever it is, right? Because bad behavior is almost always caused by powerlessness. So where are they feeling powerless, and where can you empower them in order to, the same is true of adults, the same is true of toddlers, right? And the book pointed out this old thing that, like, I know my grandma used to say is, oh, they just want attention. Like, ignore them, they just want attention. And this author was like, give it to them then, right? Like, why don't you then go to the root of the cause?
So like babies,
rather than like, oh, they just want attention, hit them or ignore them or whatever, right?
Or like babies, they cry for 3 reasons. They've got a soiled diaper, they're hungry, or they're tired, right?
Yes.
So hit them if they cry.
Right, that you teach them to, and
teach
again,
them what? That their dirty diaper is not something they should have, that they shouldn't be hungry, or that they shouldn't be tired.
Right. Or if a child is acting out, they want your attention clearly. So give it to them. Figure out what it is they need, right? I think it's worth noting that on the international front, physical discipline is increasingly being viewed as a violation of children's human rights throughout the world. The United Nations Committee on the Rights of the Child issued a directive in 2006 calling physical punishment legalized violence against children that should be eliminated in all settings through legislative, administrative, social, and educational measures. Now, because in the United States in 1977, the Supreme Court ruled that corporal punishment is constitutional, just let's let that one sink in. It's up to the state, right? So this treaty by the United Nations that was issued in 2006 was supported by 192 countries. 2 countries don't support it. Can you guess what those are? It's the United States and Somalia. So when it comes to children's rights, we're right on par with Somalia.
Someone in the chat said, have you two gone woke? So let me just be clear about something. Going woke means you don't support hitting children. No, we're not woke. I don't support hitting kids. I don't support violence of any kind. So we told you in the beginning of this show that we are peace. This is a podcast for peace. We don't want to kill anybody in any war. Don't hit anybody.
And we don't want anybody, especially not getting hit by somebody who is like an administrator in school.
Like the ridiculousness of having a sanctioned spanker at a school to beat children after we fucked them up for 2 years because of what government did to these kids. Like that's who should be spanked. If you want to have any kind of violence, maybe it should be directed to that, to the government, to these people who screwed these children up because of these draconian lockdowns and all of the crap that we did to them. This is not the response that we need, is to go around spanking children or hitting children in schools because now they have emotional problems and they've got all sorts of other problems because of what we did to them.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to get to, I think.
All right, Clark is speaking my language. He says, well, chores, just make them pull weeds. Yes. We do a lot of that around here.
So like as a just like a little thought experiment, if you can bear with me for a second here, but people have a tendency to what's the word I'm looking for? Like fantasize about glorify spanking as they'll say things like, well, I spanked my kids and look how great they are now. Like,
yes.
If it was actually effective, then the behavior would stop, would it not?
Yes.
Like who's ever been spanked once and that was it? They're like, whoop, nope, I learned my lesson. I'm good.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that, there's been countless studies that show having the death penalty in a state does not act as a deterrent for murder.
Yes.
Right. Overwhelming.
So
all it made me do.
Yeah.
I was gonna say all it made me do was just hide what I was doing. I would okay, I got spanked for that, so now next time I won't get caught.
Yeah, I had the same thing. Yeah, and it made me lie to my parents to avoid it when, yeah.
Someone says, yeah, have them go out and chop wood and carry water. Yeah, I mean, this is what there's been a number of studies that say, hey, you know, like literally getting like kids out, like and in like tougher environments, like kind of putting them through like a week-long sort of like camp where they're out with like other like, you know, away from devices, out in wilderness, like learning hard work and like, you know, talking through with people who've also had issues like this, right? Was like Outward Bound and those types of programs that have like shown amazing results. I was listening to a Navy SEAL talk about that, actually. That's why when you said Navy SEAL, he's like, you know, hitting does not work. He's like, but actually being out with other teens and people who've had issues and being out away from devices and like seeing like, okay, I can transform myself and here's an opportunity for me to, you know, become a better person and to learn away from that kind of corporal punishment. Anyway.
Sure. But again, you know, we're talking about the data around spanking, which is pretty incontrovertible. And then I can see people who have these like emotional connections to this type of discipline because of their history in their life. That is something completely different. We're talking about spanking in the educational setting. And how would you feel if someone who decided, again, you have to opt into it though, as a parent.
Paul Honor says, doing household chores is not punishment. Yes, you should all. That's another, but you know, that's a key. Everyone should be involved in the chores in the house, right?
Yes, but you can get extra as punishment too. Sure. Yeah. Okay, we're not going to talk anymore about our parenting philosophy, but we appreciate your comments.
And by the way, let's have a conversation here about woke. Like, what does it mean to be woke, right? So this phrase has been co-opted, I think. And
I think that the way they're implying is like, oh, you're being weak. You don't want, I don't know, like weak-minded.
I don't know.
In this sense.
So the way I see it, the way I've come to read this is anything that doesn't agree with the talking head, like the points that are being made by pundits is woke. So if they're on a particular side of things, you know, it's like it has to be this hard line, sort of like right wing philosophy. Otherwise, it's woke. So anything that is not
that's the thing. So if it's all, you're right. If it's right wing, you're racist or homophobic or something. If it's left wing, you're woke. So for the right calls anybody who doesn't agree with them 100% woke. The left calls anybody who doesn't agree with them racist or homophobic.
Right. So you're either racist or homophobic, or you're woke if the right calls you an insult. I get. Yeah.
So then why? So in order to not be woke, you have to be okay with hitting kids?
No, because you can see thousands of people here are like not in favor of hitting children. So are they all woke then because they're not in favor of hitting kids? Like, I don't get, that doesn't make any sense, right? What I'm arguing is that the people that screwed up our kids at government, like here's the thing. Noam Chomsky talks about this, right? There's these two lines that you're allowed to have conversations in our society. It's like the Fox News line and CNN. And like in between that is where you're allowed to have your disagreements.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, no, let's break those barriers. Let's go outside of those lines what about these governments that kept us literally locked down for 2 years, right? CNN won't tell you that, right? So we got to push beyond that stuff. We got to push outside of those boundaries and have a conversation about this. Instead, you're in this like little defined box about how you can have a conversation. I think just being woke means being awake. Just wake up, everyone. Wake up to what these governments are doing to us, these corrupt politicians.
And specifically what's happening to children. We also have an attendance problem, right? Since the pandemic, because kids were allowed to stay home and they feel anxiety about going back to school. No wonder, because we're going to make them wear masks or not. Is it safe or they're not? Do they need to get vaccinated or not, right? So this will make them want to go. They could get hit. Now.
Right. Or we're arresting 4-year-olds in Los Angeles. They called the police on a 4-year-old in Los Angeles for not wearing a mask. Like, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Like, these are the things we need to, not fight amongst ourselves, but push against these governments that are telling us how to act and how to, be under control. So that's going to do it for today's show. I want to thank all of you for subscribing to the channel. We are here Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. We should be allowed to have these conversations. You're not going to find another show, at least I don't think, where we can have these types of conversations, and we can see what you guys are saying in the chat. Any good super chats we want to get to? Man, these things are flying
We do
through. I'm
have
trying to
some
read
super
them here
chats.
as much as I can, guys. So thank you guys so much for.
So I'm gonna skip through and Yvence, Simonis, love the fact that you super at chat all the time, but some of the things you say we agree with, but can't read on YouTube. So I'm gonna skip some of them. But thank you, as always.
I did see he gave us a profanity count today because he
yeah,
said some bad words.
Yes, I personally love
I
that,
gotta-
and I'm. It's bullshit that I didn't end up on it there. Now he can.
Oh, now you're on
There
the
you go.
profanity count. All right, good.
I don't understand what I got a 1 for because all I said was hell. That's not profanity.
So Spanish John says woke means a progressive liberal. I don't agree with that. Spanish John,
No,
I
I don't
don't at
either.
all. I don't agree with that at all. No, woke means. I mean, look, woke was a word in the 1970s, if I'm not mistaken, or 1960s, 1970s, and the term was used in the black community to say, hey, wake up and be awakened, see what's happening to you, be aware of how you're being treated. Right? That's where it started from.
Right. The actual definition, if you look it up, is alert to injustice in society, especially racism. We need to stay angry and stay woke. So it's an alert to injustice in society.
Right. It does. I mean, but I think that in these comments, it's a negative association.
It is because it's been co-opted. It's like everything else. It gets co-opted to mean something completely different.
Right.
And the thing is, you don't really know because both sides use it in some cases, but it means something completely different based on how it's used.
Well, and on this show, we've talked about Woke Incorporated, right? Like Ramaswamy's book about these corporations that like take these woke causes and are hypocritical. You know, you have these corporations that are like on the one hand telling you that they stand for Black Lives Matter, and then they're also running sweatshops in Africa. You know, like, so we call out this hypocrisy on this show about woke politics and so. Yeah, it's just, these terms can be very nebulous sometimes. So just be careful when you just throw it around, because then it shuts down conversation too, right?
Right. And again, especially the one around spanking, right? Like saying that we don't like spanking as a punishment or a deterrent to behavior means that then we are too woke, so you should shut us off, right? Because otherwise we were talking a party line that you liked, and now we've stepped somewhere that you don't personally agree with. And so you can't go beyond your own personal comfort zone, right? And talk about this. Because again, those of us who were spanked as children can find this data, or who did spank our kids, or who did spank their kids, right? You can't go back and change it. And so some of this data will be very triggering, right? But can you open your mind to the fact that maybe there's another way? Or do we only have to talk about things that like seem within a spectrum, like Clayton had said?
So John Bushnell quoted Proverbs, do not withhold discipline from a child. If you strike him with the rod, he will not die. If you strike him with the rod, you will save his soul from Sheagle. But like, I mean, this is just my personal opinion, but I find like that stuff barbaric, like I feel like, because that's that's the logic that my parents used. They used the Bible. They thought that was what they were, spare the rod, spoil the child.
But there's a lot of
right?
violence
That
in
whole
the
thing.
Bible that we don't use as a life guide anymore. So I have heard that scripture thrown around to promote corporal punishment. Yeah.
Mind of the Jamal, spanking works. This is different. Spanking works. This is difference of culture.
Okay, but I don't think we need to define what works is.
Yeah, when all the data shows that the opposite is true, I'd love to see the data. What do you mean it works?
Let's see. A napweed. You guys are so real. You're almost like family.
Thank you.
And we're a family. We can have disagreements and have, differences of opinion. Again, we all 15,000 of you watching right now have all different opinions. Like if we got into a room together, we'd have a great time. We wouldn't all be 100%. That would be boring as hell if we were all
And we
the
wouldn't
same.
hit each other.
Yeah, we wouldn't hit each other.
We would not. That would not be allowed.
I would not let you hit me, and I would not hit any of you.
Yeah, we might hit each other with kindness, but that's about it.
Yes.
Hero said, send the new armed IRS agents to Ukraine.
Oh, there we go.
Yes, there's 87,000 of them. They're being trained with weapons. Send those guys.
I like that solution. Sure.
Instead of
They might be able to track the weapons and the money from the black market sales.
Yeah, they want all the receipts. They're good at that.
Genius.
Alexander Linson, I cannot wrap my head around on how in Earth's name it became possible to be ruled by stupidity. It's like Idiocracy. You ever see that?
Idiocracy, yeah. Oh, man, we've been ruled by stupidity for a long time.
Strange Universe. Pretty Lady nailed it. They used scare tactics to obtain compliance. Thankfully, not everybody jumped. I'm not sure which one of us they're referring to as Pretty Lady, but
Or one of the SOTs that we used.
Sound on tape.
The sounds. Yeah, sound bites. Okay.
Jaden says the moon landing never happened for the. Oh.
So,
what did
sorry,
you say?
The moon landing never happened.
Sorry. I thought you said thoughts, like the THOTS.
No, I got that.
Sort of a derogatory term. So I was just like kind of surprised that you used that word, and then I was like, oh wait. So ignore me.
Jaden says the moon landing never happened for the simple reason that NASA is erasing China to get to the moon. Now, like 60 years after we quote unquote went to the moon 7 times, why race if we've done it already?
Great point. All I'm saying is what Buzz Aldrin said.
That's about all I can read.
All right. Let's see. Oh, someone just said, I want to see Clayton. Someone says, hey, well, here's one from Jake the Mistake. It says, if you think your rulers are stupid, you're being stupid. Michael Parenti. No, I think it's all calculated. I mean, Discus Macabre says, Clayton, for 5 years, I've been called racist, homophobe, misogynist, Neanderthal, and more. Excuse me if I've reached my limit. Yeah.
Well,
that's the thing.
Read every single super chat. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, Yvette says, read every single super chat, David. Screw YouTube, but you don't understand. We can't afford financially to do that. You know, like, we really do appreciate every single thing you guys send in. But if we lose the channel, you're talking like you lose this show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically.
So
in
they
the format it's in.
Yeah. If they shut us down because we read something in a super chat that, you know, like our friends over at the Jimmy Dore Show do the same thing. Like there are people like will do that on purpose, you know, to get them to read a thing, and like they'll be sorry we can't read it because we know like what'll happen.
Yep. But I like this little game you're playing.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. We have to just keep it between us in some ways.
Definitely keep the profanity meter, because I like that. Now we can start competing with each other to see who's top.
Yes, tops in the profanity meter. All right, everyone. We have a daily newsletter. If you go to redacted.inc, that's the place to go and sign up. It'll be delivered to your inbox first thing in the morning. Now, you'll receive a welcome email from me. It's clayton@redacted.inc. That's the email you'll get once you sign up. And then please put me in your VIP or in your contacts list, because Google has labeled us as dangerous. Gmail has specifically labeled our newsletter as dangerous.
So if you're not getting it, you want to check.
There's nothing dangerous. We're just covering news stories you're not going to see other places. So if I guess that's dangerous. But if you put us into your VIP or in your contacts, then you'll receive the newsletter every day, Monday through Friday. So we'll be back here tomorrow live for you at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Until then, everyone, be safe, be kind to each other. Don't hit anybody, okay? Don't hit anybody. We'll see you tomorrow, everyone.